When you look at your life and wonder why certain doors have not opened, why certain breakthroughs seem delayed, it is not because you are unworthy, nor because destiny is withholding anything from you. It is because you have not yet awakened to the truth that your own ignorance, your unawareness of who you truly are and the power that is already operating within you, is the only barrier between you and the success you seek. Ignorance is not a flaw, it is simply the absence of light, the absence of recognition, the absence of inner command. And as long as you remain unaware of the creative force within your imagination, you continue to live as though life is happening to you rather than through you. You have been taught to believe that success comes from effort, struggle, or chance. Yet the very essence of your being silently whispers that everything in your world is molded by your inner state. Every achievement, every failure, every delay, every victory, they all reflect the inner assumptions you carry. But if you are unaware of this law, unaware of this inner movement, then you continue to repeat patterns you do not want, thinking they are caused by something outside yourself. Ignorance blocks success because it convinces you that power lies elsewhere. It trains you to look outward, to wait for conditions to change, to wait for people to approve, to wait for opportunities to present themselves. But life doesn't respond to waiting, it responds to being. It responds to the state you occupy. The ignorant mind waits for evidence before believing. The awakened mind believes first and lets evidence rise naturally from the belief. You will never rise above the level of the assumptions you are unconscious of. If you believe you are limited, then even if you work relentlessly, the fruits will reflect the limitation. If you believe you are unworthy, even blessings placed directly in your hands will slip away because your inner state cannot hold what it does not accept. But once you recognize that consciousness is the only cause, you stop blaming circumstances and begin reshaping them from within. Success is never withheld, it is only misaligned with the state you occupy. Your ignorance makes you react to life instead of creating it. When something unwanted appears, you assume it has power. You surrender authority to it and reinforce its presence by identifying with it. But once you understand that everything in your world is the outpicturing of your inner movement, you stop reacting and begin selecting. You choose what you accept as true. You choose the reality you embody. You choose the feeling you dwell in. And success becomes inevitable because you are no longer swayed by appearances, you are guided by inner conviction. Ignorance also blinds you to the subtlety of your own inner conversations. Every internal dialogue, every quiet muttering that runs through your mind is forming the structure of your world. You may speak abundance outwardly, but if you argue against it in the silence of your mind, your world will reflect the argument, not the declaration. Most people are not defeated by external forces. They are defeated by the thoughts they do not realize they are thinking. They rehearse fear without noticing it. They dwell on doubt without questioning it. They accept limitation as normal because they have never examined where these thoughts originate. But the moment you become aware, truly aware, that your inner speech is creating your outer experience, everything shifts. You begin to watch your thoughts as an observer, choosing which ones to keep and which ones to dismiss. You begin to speak inwardly as the version of yourself who already has what you desire. Your inner world becomes disciplined, intentional, luminous, and success begins to take shape effortlessly because your inner climate now matches the harvest you want. Ignorance keeps you emotionally entangled with the old state, the old self, the old story. You want success, but you continue to feel like the unsuccessful version of yourself. You imagine abundance, but you continue to identify with lack. You affirm confidence, but you still return to the feeling of insecurity. The contradiction is not a flaw, it is simply unawareness. You have not yet realized that your feelings are not responses. They are creators. They are molding the very conditions of your life. And until you consciously choose your inner feeling, your outer world cannot change. Success requires one thing: alignment with the state in which success is natural. And that alignment begins with awareness. When you become aware of your inner state, your thoughts, your feelings, your assumptions, you gain the power to shift them. You gain the power to enter the version of yourself who already possesses what you seek. And once you embody that version inwardly, the outer world reshapes itself to mirror your inner identity. It is your ignorance of this inner power that makes you chase results instead of embodying them. You try to change the reflection instead of the face. You try to force outcomes through action alone, forgetting that action is the last step, never the first cause. Action flows naturally from a state of being. When you are inwardly aligned with success, you take inspired action, not desperate action. You move confidently, not anxiously. You choose deliberately, not reactively. And this is why success seems effortless for those who know the law. They are not fighting the world, they are shaping it from within. The truth is simple: you cannot manifest what you are unaware of being. You cannot attract what you do not assume yourself to already possess. Success is not something you chase, it is something you awaken to. And the moment you withdraw your belief from the old, limited identity, and place your consciousness on the version of yourself who is already successful, your world must conform. It has no choice. The outer world is obedient to the inner one. Ignorance keeps you living as the echo of old states rather than the creator of new ones. But awareness restores your authority. Awareness gives you back your throne. Awareness allows you to enter into the feeling of fulfillment before any evidence appears. And that feeling, once sustained, becomes the very power that reorganizes your world. So reflect on this truth. Nothing outside you is blocking your success. No person, no lack of opportunity, no circumstance has the power to stand between you and what is already yours in consciousness. The only barrier is the unawareness of your own creative nature. And the moment that ignorance dissolves, even slightly, the world begins to respond differently. Doors open, ideas come, people show up, circumstances shift. Not by luck, but by law. Awaken to your own creative power. Notice your inner conversations. Observe your assumptions. Choose your feelings deliberately. And the success you have been chasing will begin to chase you, because you will finally be aligned with the truth of who you are and the limitless potential that has been waiting for your recognition. And as you continue to examine the patterns of your life, you will realize that ignorance is subtle. It does not always appear as confusion or lack of knowledge. Sometimes it disguises itself as logic, as practicality, as being realistic. You were taught to believe only what your physical senses report, unaware that your senses merely reflect whatever state you have accepted as true. If you accept limitation, you will see limitation. If you accept lack, you will see lack. If you accept struggle, you will experience it repeatedly. The senses are not the creators, they are the reporters. And when you identify with their reports, you remain bound to the very conditions you hope to escape. But when you awaken from this ignorance, even slightly, your senses no longer dictate your destiny. You begin to live from imagination rather than circumstance. You begin to choose your identity deliberately, not automatically. You no longer ask, "What can I do with what I have?" but instead declare, "This is who I am," and the world will rearrange itself accordingly. This shift is subtle yet monumental. It is the difference between living reactively and living creatively. It is the difference between survival and mastery. The reason your ignorance blocks success is because it keeps you looping inside the same emotional patterns. Emotion is the fuel of manifestation. Whatever you feel deeply and consistently becomes your lived experience. But if you are unaware of what you truly feel, if you mistake momentary excitement for conviction or surface level positivity for inner certainty, then you misjudge your own creative state. Success requires emotional acceptance. You must feel yourself into the reality you desire, not merely think about it. But if you are unaware of your emotional baseline, you continue to return to the old familiar feelings, the ones that shaped your past and continue shaping your present. Ignorance also convinces you that effort is more powerful than imagination. You work harder, push more, exhaust yourself, believing that through action alone you can break through. And while action has its place, it is powerless without the right state behind it. If your inner assumption contradicts your outer action, the assumption will always win. You may take hundreds of steps in the wrong inner state and see little progress, but shift the inner state and a single action becomes fruitful. This is why some succeed with ease while others struggle endlessly. The difference is not talent or opportunity, it is awareness of their inner creative power. To dissolve ignorance, you must become intimate with your inner world. You must observe your imagination, your inner conversations, your reactions, your assumptions, not with judgment, but with curiosity. What have you been assuming about yourself? What silent stories have you been repeating? What identity have you unconsciously accepted? These inner patterns are the architects of your outer world. And until you examine them, you live as a victim of your own unawareness. The moment you become conscious of a limiting assumption, you gain the power to replace it. But the ignorant mind never questions its assumptions. It accepts them as truth. It says, "I am this way because life made me this way," not realizing that it is shaping life through these very beliefs. To rise into success, you must question the identity you have worn for years. You must allow yourself to step into a version of you that feels foreign at first, a version that contradicts everything your senses show you. For imagination is not a reflection of your present circumstances, it is the blueprint of your future reality. Ignorance keeps you chained to the identity of lack, but awareness liberates you into abundance. Ignorance convinces you that results create belief, but awareness teaches you that belief creates results. Ignorance tells you to wait for evidence, but awareness tells you to generate the feeling of the fulfilled desire and let evidence flow from that feeling. This is the secret the world does not teach, and yet it is the foundation of every successful life. When you become aware of your inner power, you no longer chase anything. You attract it by becoming the state in which it is natural. You do not beg for opportunities, you embody the version of yourself for whom opportunities are inevitable. You do not plead for success, you breathe as the one who has already succeeded. The world responds to identity, not effort, and identity is shaped by awareness, not ignorance. The most profound shift occurs when you realize that every moment is an opportunity to choose a new state. You are never trapped, never stuck, never confined to an old pattern. You may have lived years in a limited state, but the moment you recognize it, you can drop it. You can choose a new feeling, a new assumption, a new inner dialogue. And that choice, though invisible to everyone else, begins to alter the entire trajectory of your life. Ignorance makes you live by reaction, awareness empowers you to live by intention. When you react, you reinforce the old state. When you intend, you create a new one. Your reactions reveal your inner beliefs. If you react with fear, you have believed in power outside yourself. If you react with doubt, you have believed in separation from the desire. But if you respond with calm certainty, even before any evidence appears, you demonstrate awareness of the law that governs all creation. Another form of ignorance is the habit of postponing your desire. You say, one day I will succeed. One day things will change. One day the opportunity will come. And in that postponement, you place your desire in the future, never in the present. But the present is the only place creation occurs. You must claim your desire as now, not tomorrow, not someday, now. For your inner world only responds to the present moment. And if you keep placing your desire in the distance, your world will continue to mirror that distance. Ignorance also keeps you emotionally attached to the old story. You replay old failures, old disappointments, old betrayals, unaware that each replay reactivates the state that produced them. You relive the memory, not knowing that memory is imagination in reverse. Every time you rehearse the past, you create from it, and your future becomes a continuation of what you never let go of. Awareness frees you by teaching you to detach from the old story and attach only to the new state. You cannot create a new life while worshipping the memory of the old one. You must be willing to release the identity that was shaped by old circumstances. You must be willing to stand boldly in the feeling of a new reality before any evidence arrives. This is faith, not blind belief, but inner certainty, inner knowing, inner alignment. Ignorance never questions the feeling of doubt. Awareness replaces it with conviction. Ignorance believes obstacles are real. Awareness knows they are reflections of inner states. Ignorance sees problems. Awareness sees opportunities to shift consciousness. When you awaken to this truth, you become unstoppable, not because of force, but because of alignment. To truly step into success, you must cultivate mastery over your inner speech. Your inner dialogue is the script your life follows. And if that script is filled with lack, fear, or limitation, your life will obediently reflect it. But when your inner speech is filled with confidence, abundance, and certainty, your world must follow the new script. Do not underestimate the power of the words you whisper to yourself. They are seeds, and your assumption is the soil in which they grow. Ignorance makes you speak as the old self. Awareness empowers you to speak as the new self. And when the new self becomes your dominant inner voice, your outer world transforms accordingly. Another way ignorance blocks success is by creating the illusion that change takes time. Time has no power over your state of being. Time only delivers what you have already assumed. The moment you shift your inner state, creation begins. Time is simply the bridge that carries the unseen into the seen. But because you are unaware of this, you wait for time to validate your desire instead of using time as the servant of your assumption. Success is not a slow climb, it is an inner acceptance. Once accepted, the world begins to move, people begin to align, conditions begin to shift, all to reflect the new identity you have claimed. You cannot see the full pathway, but you do not need to. Awareness gives you the confidence to trust the unseen process. Ignorance also convinces you that you must earn or deserve success. But consciousness does not operate by merit, it operates by identity. You do not achieve success by proving yourself. You manifest it by assuming yourself to be the one who already has it. Worthiness is not something to be gained, it is something to be recognized. And once you recognize it, your world reflects that recognition instantly. The more aware you become of your inner world, the more you see how effortlessly success can manifest. Not through strain, but through inner clarity. Not through constant action, but through aligned assumption. Your awareness becomes your compass, your guide, your source of power. It dissolves fear, removes doubt, and replaces confusion with certainty. And as you continue to awaken, you will see that nothing has ever truly been against you. Nothing has ever blocked your path. All barriers were illusions created by your own unawareness. But now that you are conscious of the law, conscious of your inner creative authority, you are free to shape your life according to your highest vision. You do not need permission. You do not need validation. You do not need external proof. All you need is awareness of your own power and the willingness to embody the state of your fulfilled desire. Once you do that, success is not a possibility. It is inevitable. And when you truly realize that everything begins within you, you will stop treating success as something outside of yourself. You will stop viewing it as a reward you must chase, negotiate for, or qualify for. Instead, you will see that success is simply the reflection of a state you have chosen to embody. The world mirrors your inner conviction, not your outer effort. And until you grasp this, you continue living in the illusion that something external must change before you can succeed. Ignorance keeps you believing that circumstances are the cause. You say, if only I had more money, I could be successful. If only I had the right opportunity, I would advance. If only people supported me, I could reach my potential. Yet all of these statements reveal that you believe power lies outside of you. As long as you place power in conditions, conditions will rule over you. But once you reclaim power within, conditions begin to bow to your new inner identity. Success is drawn to certainty, and certainty is born in awareness. You cannot feel certain while remaining unconscious of your beliefs. You cannot feel powerful while unaware of your own creative authority. You cannot feel abundant while unknowingly rehearsing thoughts of lack. Only awareness brings clarity, clarity of identity, clarity of intention, clarity of feeling. And with clarity comes alignment, and with alignment comes manifestation. Ignorance also blinds you to the persistence required for inner transformation. Most people are consistent only with their old state. They return to old feelings repeatedly because they are familiar. They dwell in old assumptions because they feel safe even when they limit them. They may briefly imagine success, but they continue living emotionally as the version of themselves who has not achieved it. And the world, being perfectly obedient, reflects that emotional reality. Awareness teaches you that persistence is not struggle, it is simply loyalty to the inner state you have chosen. It is the willingness to remain faithful to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, even when the outer world has not yet rearranged itself. It is the ability to choose imagination over senses, conviction over doubt, identity over circumstances. And when you persist in the new state, the old one dissolves naturally. Ignorance blocks success because it makes you impatient. When you do not understand the law, you believe that lack of immediate results means failure. You begin to doubt, to fear, to shift your inner state back to the old one. But awareness shows you that the absence of immediate change is not delay, it is simply the space in which the unseen is forming. The seed takes time to break through the soil, but its growth is already happening. The same is true for your desires. Once the inner state shifts, creation begins instantly. Your job is not to force it, but to remain aligned with it. Ignorance makes you believe that your past defines you. You look at past failures and assume they predict future outcomes. But awareness shows you that the past survives only when you give it life through memory and identification. The moment you withdraw attention from it, its power dissolves. You are not defined by what has happened. You are defined only by what you assume yourself to be now. The present assumption is stronger than the past event. And when you change your assumption, the past no longer dominates your future. Ignorance keeps you trapped in comparison. You look at the success of others and conclude that they possess something you do not. Yet their success is merely the result of their inner alignment, an alignment you are equally capable of achieving. Envy, insecurity, and comparison arise only when you are ignorant of your own power. But when you awaken, you see others as mirrors, not competitors. Their success becomes evidence of what is possible when one aligns inwardly, and this recognition fuels your own transformation. Another way ignorance blocks success is by keeping you emotionally entangled with fear. Fear is not a natural state, it is the product of misunderstanding. You fear the future because you believe it is uncertain, unpredictable, or beyond your control. You fear failure because you assume outcomes are shaped by chance. Yet awareness removes fear instantly by revealing that you are the sole architect of your reality. When you know you create through assumption and feeling, fear loses its foundation. It becomes impossible to fear what you are creating deliberately. Awareness dissolves doubt, because doubt can only exist in the absence of understanding. You do not doubt gravity. You do not doubt the rising of the sun. You do not doubt the movement of time. And when you truly understand the law of consciousness, you stop doubting your ability to manifest. You become certain not through effort, but through recognition. Recognition of the creative power already within you. Ignorance causes you to misinterpret setbacks. You believe they signal failure, not realizing they often indicate that the old state is losing power. Many times the world must reshuffle itself before the new state can manifest fully. This reshuffling sometimes appears as disruption. But awareness sees through appearances. Awareness recognizes that everything is moving in your favor, even when it seems otherwise. Conditions that fall apart are often clearing the way for something greater. Ignorance also convinces you that desire is separate from fulfillment. You desire something because you believe it is not yours. But awareness teaches that the desire itself is the sign of possession. You desire it only because you already are the version of yourself who can claim it. The desire rises from within as a reminder of what is possible, not as a reminder of what is missing. The feeling of desire is your invitation to embody the fulfilled state. It is not a signal of lack, it is a call to recognition. When you are ignorant of this truth, you treat desire as a source of pain. You feel the absence, you feel the distance. But when you awaken, desire becomes a source of joy. You see it as evidence of your creative potential. You see it as the first movement of the unseen reality toward the surface. You no longer resist your desires or judge them. You honor them. You welcome them. You claim them inwardly as already yours. Ignorance keeps you waiting for permission, validation, approval. But success does not require any of these things. Success responds only to inner acceptance. As long as you wait for validation from the world, you delay your own expansion. But once you validate yourself inwardly, the world mirrors that certainty. Awareness also reveals that imagination is the true reality. Everything you see, every object, every achievement, every relationship, every circumstance was once imagined. Even the people you admire imagined themselves into positions of success long before the world acknowledged them. You are no different. Your imagination is not fantasy, it is creation in its purest form. And your ignorance of this is the only reason you have not used it deliberately. When you learn to live from imagination, not toward it, success becomes effortless. You mentally rehearse the feeling of the wish fulfilled until it becomes your natural inner climate. You return to it again and again, not as a task, but as your home. And eventually, the inescapable law of consciousness reshapes your external world to match the inner one. Ignorance blocks success by keeping you emotionally attached to the senses. You trust what you see more than what you feel. But awareness reverses this order. You begin to trust the feeling before the evidence. You begin to trust the inner conviction before the outer confirmation. And this shift is the foundation of all manifestation. The moment you place more faith in the unseen reality than the visible one, success begins to unfold rapidly. Opportunities arise unexpectedly. People show up at the right time. Ideas emerge effortlessly. Circumstances align without strain. It is not magic. It is the law responding to your new state. Ignorance also keeps you from recognizing your own value. You may believe that success must come from something external, a skill, a resource, a talent. But awareness shows you that your true value lies in your ability to embody states of abundance, confidence, and certainty. When you align with these states, you naturally take actions that lead to success. You naturally attract opportunities that match your inner identity. You naturally express a version of yourself that others are drawn to. Your value is not something you earn, it is something you reveal through awareness. To live successfully, you must be willing to detach from the old self completely. This requires courage, the courage to stop telling the old story, to stop identifying with past limitations, to stop rehearsing the identity formed by old circumstances. Ignorance clings to the old self because it feels familiar. Awareness releases it because it knows the new self already exists within your consciousness. Ignorance tells you to be realistic. Awareness tells you to be imaginative. Ignorance tells you to analyze conditions. Awareness tells you to choose your inner state. Ignorance tells you to wait for improvement. Awareness tells you to embody improvement. The contrast is immense. And the moment you choose awareness, even for a moment, you feel a shift. Something opens within you. A quiet confidence emerges. You begin to sense that success is not distant but close, not difficult but natural. You begin to understand that you are not becoming successful. You are revealing the success that has always been available to you once you aligned inwardly. Awareness is the key. It is the light that dissolves all ignorance, all doubt, all limitation. The moment you become conscious of your inner creative authority, you step into a new life. Not because the world changed, but because you did. And when you change inwardly, the world has no choice but to follow. And as this awareness deepens, something extraordinary begins to happen. You no longer fight with life. You no longer resist what appears, nor do you fear what may come. Instead, you understand that all outer conditions are reflections of inner states you have entertained. This dissolves the struggle, the frustration, the confusion. You begin to see life as fluid, malleable, responsive. You begin to recognize that you are not at the mercy of circumstances. You are the orchestrator of them. Ignorance makes you believe that change requires force. Awareness shows you that change requires acceptance. When you accept a new state within yourself, truly accept it, your world eventually conforms. The ignorant mind fights the old conditions, resisting them, arguing with them, trying to fix them. But the enlightened mind simply withdraws attention from the old and places attention on the new. It does not resist, it replaces. It does not struggle, it selects. This selection of state is the greatest power you possess. Every moment of your life, you are selecting who you believe yourself to be. You may do it unconsciously, allowing old assumptions to choose for you, or you may do it consciously, deliberately stepping into the identity that aligns with your desire. The world does not shape your identity shapes your world. Ignorance blocks success because it keeps you loyal to the old identity. You may desire success, but you continue to feel like someone who has not achieved it. You may affirm abundance, but you continue to identify with lack. You may imagine opportunity, but you continue to walk through the world with the posture of limitation. And so, the world faithfully mirrors that posture. But once you awaken to the truth that identity precedes experience, you begin to shift the way you move, think, feel, and perceive. You begin to embody the version of yourself who has already arrived. You do not wait for results, you generate the feeling of the result now. And because creation begins with feeling, the outer world begins to align with this new inner attitude. The more aware you become of this principle, the more effortless manifestation becomes. You no longer concern yourself with how things will unfold. You no longer monitor every detail. You simply dwell in the end, the emotional reality of the fulfilled desire, and trust that everything else will take care of itself. This trust is not blind, it is grounded in understanding. Once you know the law, trust arises naturally. Ignorance also blocks success by making you identify with your current limitations. You look at your bank balance and conclude that you are lacking. You look at your circumstances and conclude that you are restricted. You look at delays and conclude that nothing is working. But these conclusions come from ignorance. They come from the belief that what you see is final, that what exists now determines what can exist later. Awareness reveals that what you see now is simply an echo of previous states. It is old news. It is the past expressing itself in the present. And because it is the past, it has no real authority over your future, unless you continue to give it power through your reactions. The moment you shift your inner state, the future begins to change, and the present eventually catches up. Ignorance blinds you to this transition period. It makes you panic when you see no immediate changes. It convinces you to return to the old emotional patterns. But awareness knows that the outer world is slow compared to the instantaneous movement of imagination. Awareness understands that everything is unfolding according to the state you maintain. Another way ignorance blocks success is by feeding you the illusion of separation. You believe your desire is out there somewhere in the distance. You believe you must reach for it, chase it, earn it, or qualify for it. But awareness dissolves the illusion. It reveals that your desire is not separate from you. It is an extension of your own consciousness. You do not attract your desire, you become it. You do not pursue success. You assume the state of the successful one. Ignorance keeps you searching. Awareness keeps you selecting. Ignorance makes you hope. Awareness makes you know. Ignorance makes you wish. Awareness makes you feel. Ignorance keeps you longing. Awareness keeps you embodying. This embodiment is the heart of manifestation. When you live from the feeling of the wish fulfilled, your world must organize itself around that inner truth. But when you live from longing, from absence, from desire without assumption, your world reflects that absence. Ignorance also distorts your relationship with imagination. You think imagination is mere fantasy, something separate from reality. But imagination is the womb of creation. Everything that exists, every structure, system, invention, achievement, was first an idea, a possibility imagined by someone who refused to be bound by current conditions. The world you inhabit is made of imagination crystallized into form. And the same process applies to your personal life. Awareness teaches you to honor your imagination, to treat it not as escape, but as the workshop of your future, to enter it deliberately, consciously, and confidently, to shape in imagination the scenes that represent your fulfilled desire, and to feel these scenes as if they are happening now. When this becomes your nightly ritual, your daily practice, your inner foundation, success becomes inevitable. Ignorance blocks success because it convinces you that outer change precedes inner change. But the opposite is true. Inner change creates outer change. You cannot wait for success to feel successful. You must feel successful to experience success. You cannot wait for abundance to feel abundant. You must feel abundant before it appears. Feeling is the bridge between imagination and manifestation. Ignorance also makes you believe that success is limited, reserved for the few, distributed by luck or favoritism. But awareness shows you that success is unlimited because consciousness is unlimited. There is no scarcity of opportunity, no shortage of abundance, no limitation to what you may create within. The only limitation is the one you place upon yourself through ignorance. Once you awaken to the boundless nature of consciousness, you stop thinking in terms of competition, scarcity, or restriction. You begin to see that the same creative power that formed the universe flows through you as imagination. And when you align with that power, success becomes not a possibility, but a certainty. Another subtle way ignorance blocks success is through emotional inconsistency. You may feel confident one moment and fearful the next. You may feel abundant during meditation but stressed throughout the day. You may imagine vividly at night but wake up doubting in the morning. This inconsistency keeps you oscillating between states. And since the world reflects your dominant state, not your occasional moments of clarity, your manifestation seems delayed. Awareness brings emotional stability, not forced positivity, but conscious alignment. You become aware of when you are slipping into the old state, and you gently guide yourself back into the new one. You become aware of your emotional triggers and refuse to allow them to dictate your inner identity. You cultivate an inner atmosphere of calm certainty, regardless of outer conditions. Ignorance also makes you misinterpret your desires. You think desire means you are lacking something. But awareness shows that desire is the voice of your higher self calling you into expansion. Desire is not a reminder of what you do not have. It is a revelation of what you are ready to embody. When you understand this, desire becomes a gift, not a burden. You stop suppressing your desires. You stop doubting your desires. You stop apologizing for your desires. You embrace them as evidence of your growing awareness. You recognize that every new desire is the next version of you awaiting expression. Ignorance makes you ask, is this possible for me? Awareness makes you ask, how quickly can I align with this? Ignorance asks, what if it doesn't work? Awareness asks, what if it works flawlessly? Ignorance says, I hope. Awareness says, I am. This shift from hoping to assuming, from longing to being, from wishing to knowing, that is the doorway to success. The more deeply you enter this awareness, the more your senses begin to obey your imagination instead of dominating it. You begin to walk through the world as someone who knows that the invisible reality is more powerful than the visible. You begin to move with quiet confidence, not because of what you see, but because of what you feel. And this confidence becomes magnetic. People notice the shift in your energy, even if they cannot explain it. Opportunities emerge effortlessly. Doors open without force. Solutions appear without struggle. You find yourself in the right place at the right time, not by chance but by alignment. Ignorance blocks success by disconnecting you from your inner guidance. You rely solely on logic, strategy, or external advice. But awareness reconnects you to intuition, the quiet voice that arises from your deeper self. Intuition is not emotion, it is not fear, it is not impulse. It is inner knowing, knowledge that comes from alignment with your true identity. When you trust intuition, you move in harmony with your manifested future. You make choices that align with your desired state. You notice opportunities others overlook. You sense when to act and when to remain still. And because these actions arise from the fulfilled state, they carry power. Ignorance also keeps you trapped in the belief that success requires predictability. You want to know every step, every detail, every outcome. But awareness teaches you that clarity of the end is more important than clarity of the path. The path reveals itself step by step as you embody the end. The world responds to your state, arranging events in the most efficient way possible, often in ways you could never have planned. You do not need to know how, you only need to know the end. The how is the domain of the unseen intelligence within you. When you try to control the how, you limit the infinite possibilities available. When you trust the how, you open the door to effortless manifestation. Ignorance also creates emotional resistance. You may want success, but you fear the changes it will bring. You may want abundance, but you fear being seen or judged. You may want expansion, but you fear leaving behind the familiar. These fears are subtle but powerful, and as long as you remain unaware of them, they undermine your desires. Awareness brings these fears to light, not to criticize them, but to dissolve them. Once they are seen, they lose their power. You begin to move forward with an open heart, unburdened by hidden resistance. You begin to claim your desires fully, with clarity and confidence. As ignorance fades, you begin to see success as natural, not exceptional. You begin to understand that the same consciousness that breathes through you organizes galaxies, orchestrates seasons, sustains life. This power is not separate from you. It expresses through you. And when you align with it consciously, your life begins to unfold in ways that defy logic. This is the essence of awareness, the recognition that you are the creative center of your reality. And once you see this clearly, success stops being a struggle and becomes a natural expression of who you are. Of all the forces that determine the course of a person's life, none is as quietly powerful or as quietly destructive as the ignorance they carry within themselves. Not ignorance in the sense of lacking education or information, but ignorance of one's own nature, one's own power, one's own role as the operant creator of experience. It is this unawareness that becomes the invisible barrier between where you stand and where you desire to be. And it persists only because you have not yet turned inward long enough or deeply enough to see what has been given to you from the beginning. For when you truly know who you are, success is no longer something you chase. It is something that rises to meet you because it has no choice. Ignorance blocks your success because it convinces you that the outside world is the cause and you are its effect. It persuades you to believe that circumstances, people, timing, and luck determine your destiny. It tells you that if something has not happened yet, it is because the world has withheld it from you. And so long as you accept this, you live as a reactor instead of a creator, hoping instead of choosing, wishing instead of assuming. Yet all along, the creative power that shapes every event of your life is operating from within you, responding not to your wishes but to your assumptions, your inner states, your self-concepts, your deeply held beliefs. Ignorance is nothing more than continued identification with a powerless version of yourself. It is the state of forgetting that consciousness shapes reality, that imagination is the blueprint from which life constructs its forms. The moment you forget this, you surrender your authority to the world of appearances. You see lack and assume it is your truth. You see delay and assume the universe is resisting you. You see challenges and assume they are evidence of limitation instead of invitations for inner rearrangement. Success cannot enter such a mind because success is a state of consciousness, and a consciousness rooted in fear, doubt, or dependency cannot receive it. Every time you say, "I don't know how," you reinforce the very ignorance that blocks your path. You were never meant to know how in the mechanical sense. You were meant to know the end in the imaginative sense. It is the acceptance of the end that compels the means. The moment you embody the feeling of your wish fulfilled, the invisible processes begin to operate. You do not consciously direct them, you simply assume the state, and life reorganizes itself around that assumption. But ignorance keeps you from doing this because it convinces you that imagination is fantasy, that feeling is weakness, that inner conviction has no power. So you continue to work harder on the outside while neglecting the inside, unaware that the inside is the only place where change truly happens. Ignorance blinds you to the laws under which you live every moment. The law of assumption is functioning whether you acknowledge it or not. Your circumstances today are nothing but crystallized states you assumed yesterday. Your relationships, your finances, your opportunities, your limitations, every one of them reflects a state you previously entertained. But if you do not know this, you interpret your world as separate from you. You believe life is happening to you instead of through you. And because you remain unaware of the connection between your inner reality and your outer experiences, you stay trapped in the same patterns, repeating them again and again, baffled as to why nothing seems to change. Ignorance keeps you invested in the illusions of the senses. You judge by appearances, and in doing so, you bind yourself to them. You see your bank account and assume that the number defines your potential. You look at your current job and assume it represents the limit of your opportunities. You look at the behavior of others and assume it reveals something about your worth. Yet all these things are nothing but reflections of past states, shadows cast by assumptions long held. But ignorance convinces you that these shadows are permanent, that your present form is your final identity. Only when you awaken to the falseness of appearances do you gain the ability to rise above them. The greatest tragedy of ignorance is that it makes you wait. Wait for a sign, wait for a shift, wait for permission, wait for the right moment. But the right moment exists only when you create it. The world mirrors your inner being, it does not lead it. If you wait for something to appear before you allow yourself to believe it, you will wait forever. Life does not give you what you want, it gives you what you are willing to assume. And ignorance keeps you from assuming something greater, because it teaches you to bow to your senses instead of commanding them. There is no external force blocking your success. No person, no institution, no condition, no past event has the authority to prevent your rise, unless you assume they do. The only obstacle is the ignorance that prevents you from assuming your rightful identity as the creator of your experience. You have been given imagination so that you may select the reality you desire. You have been given consciousness so that you may dwell in it. You have been given feeling so that you may embody the state long before it manifests. But if you ignore these gifts, you will continue to live as though you are powerless, even while holding infinite power within you. Ignorance is subtle. It takes the form of doubt, hesitation, unworthiness, and fear. It whispers to you that something outside must change first before you can believe something different within. It tells you that you must struggle, must earn, must suffer, must wait. But all these are lies. The moment you accept an inner state as true, you have already claimed it, and the world must conform. Success is not something you pursue with effort, it is a state you occupy with certainty. And the moment you occupy it, the outer world cannot help but reorganize itself to match it. Your success is blocked because you have not yet assumed the identity of someone for whom success is natural. You may desire it, you may believe in it partially, you may hope for it. But unless you assume it, unless you wear it internally like clothing already fitted to your form, it will remain distant. Ignorance keeps you identifying with your old self-image, clinging to stories that no longer serve you. Stories of not being ready, not being capable, not being worthy. These stories are illusions, yet they bind you as long as you believe them. And the moment you stop believing them, they dissolve. Everything you desire already exists as a state of consciousness. Wealth, love, freedom, opportunity. These are not things you create, they are states you enter. And every state has its own ways, its own conditions, its own unfolding. If you live in the state of abundance, abundance will find you. If you live in the state of confidence, opportunities will seek you out. If you live in the state of success, you will encounter people, ideas, and events that match that vibration. But if you remain ignorant of these states, or ignorant of your ability to choose them, you remain in the old ones by default. Ignorance also keeps you emotionally reacting to the world instead of spiritually directing it. Success is not achieved by reacting, it is achieved by selecting. When you react, you confirm the reality of what you see. When you select, you shift the reality entirely. The power is always in selection. But if you do not know this, you spend your life responding to conditions instead of creating new ones. To break free from the ignorance that blocks your success, you must first become aware of your own inner conversations. These silent dialogues shape every event of your life. They form the seeds from which your experiences grow. If your inner conversations are filled with doubt, fear, and limitation, your world must reflect them. But if they are filled with certainty, gratitude, and expectation, your world has no choice but to yield success. Ignorance keeps you unaware of the creative power of these inner dialogues, so you continue to speak words against yourself without realizing they are commands to your reality. Ignorance also blinds you to the importance of feeling. Feeling is the secret doorway through which your desires enter this world. It is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. Whatever you feel deeply, you impress upon the subconscious, and the subconscious reproduces it in form. But if you ignore your feelings, if you dismiss them, suppress them, or let them be shaped by the external world. You lose your creative authority. When you choose the feeling of your wish fulfilled, regardless of appearances, you declare your independence from the limitations of the senses. Ignorance prevents this by making you believe that feeling something before it appears is foolish or unrealistic. Yet this is the very thing that makes manifestation possible. Your ignorance is blocking your success because it keeps you living as a spectator instead of a participant in the creation of your life. It convinces you that your imagination is merely a place for dreams instead of the womb of reality. It tells you that your desires are distant instead of already existing within you. It persuades you that you must achieve before you can believe, when the truth is the opposite. You must believe before you can achieve. Now imagine, just for a moment, what your life would look like if you dropped every ignorant assumption you have ever carried. Imagine what would happen if you no longer accepted lack as normal, no longer accepted struggle as necessary, no longer accepted delay as natural. Imagine living with the quiet confidence that everything you desire is already yours in consciousness, and that consciousness is the only reality. Imagine acting, speaking, and thinking from the version of yourself who already possesses the success you seek. The moment you do this, the world must yield. Success is not withheld from you, it is awaiting recognition. You are not blocked by fate, you are blocked by forgetfulness. Forgetfulness of the truth of your being. And once you remember that truth, once you reclaim your identity as the creator, everything that has seemed difficult becomes effortless, and everything that has seemed distant becomes inevitable. Here is a strong, powerful conclusion for your speech in the same style. The moment you stop surrendering to appearances and awaken to the truth that your inner world is the cause of all outer expression, the chains that ignorance forged around your life begin to break. You were never meant to live at the mercy of circumstances. You were meant to command them from within. Success has never been outside your reach. It has only been outside your awareness. And the instant you choose to see yourself as the operant power, the instant you assume the state of the one who already possesses the life you desire, the doors that once seemed sealed shut will open effortlessly before you. Let this be the moment you step out of the smallness of ignorance and into the vastness of your true identity. Let this be the moment you stop waiting and begin assuming. Let this be the moment you decide that nothing outside of you dictates your destiny. For the one who knows their own creative power walks through life with quiet authority, unshaken by appearances, unmoved by circumstances, and unstoppable in purpose. Claim that power now, embody it now, and watch as success, not by struggle but by law, unfolds around you in ways that leave no room for doubt that the change began within you